Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles. I'm the Director of Partnerships here at Sweetfish Media. I am excited to introduce Justin Hiatt. He is the VP of Sales Development at Workfront. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Logan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. I am really excited to dive into your specific thoughts on hiring and engaging SDRs and, building a great culture within that portion of your business and retaining great talent. I think it is something that's definitely top of mind, especially when you look at the high churn rate, especially at the SDR position, within tech companies and any sales organization. Before we do that, Justin, let's provide folks with a little bit of context. I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you and the team at Workfront are up to these days.
Yeah, so Workfront is essentially kind of a work management platform for managing your work in the digital age. Everything from, just completing daily tasks to helping companies transform their business digitally through digital transformation. So we work with a ton of different types of companies and a ton of different people to simply make their lives easier when it comes to work.
Awesome. I forget actually now what book it was that I was reading, but that's right. It was What's Best Next, and I forget the author's name right at the moment. Mm-hmm. But it was talking a little bit about one of the problems with knowledge work is that it's tough to define what we do and organize what we do. That's really the main challenge a lot of us face with productivity. So I love this idea of kind of organizing our digital life and digital world in one pane of glass, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what we help people be more productive, more efficient with their time, because they just don't have a lot of it, right? You only have so much time in your day.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, Justin, let's jump right in. You've got some things to share, lessons learned in your current role and in previous roles that you've been in sales development for a while. So we're going to kick off talking about two things: hiring SDRs and then keeping them engaged. Like we said, under this topic of creating a great culture in this area and retaining great talent. So, if we're going to retain great talent, we've got to get great talent. So
exactly.
Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about, building an ICP, in this case, your ideal candidate profile.
Yeah. So, with any job, any position, any type of industry you're in, if you run a team or an organization, all starts with getting the right people. So, when I started here at Workfront, I essentially got my leadership team together and I said, look, who in your eyes is the ideal candidate? And we started talking about specific people. What type of things, what type of attributes do they have? Because in this type of role, you usually don't get someone with much experience. Sometimes you go right into university and you hire people that don't have any experience in terms of professional experience at all. So we really lean into the ideal candidate profile concept. And we're looking for the certain type of attributes that we feel, one, is a good fit for Workfront's culture, and two, create a phenomenal SDR. And I can go into some of them if you'd like. Really where we start is sales desire. How much desire and passion do they have for sales, and also to embark and start a sales career? Why that's important is, one, this job can be really a grind. Anyone who's done it or has exposure to it knows that. So the motivation of, hey, we can develop your skill and help you get to an account executive one day, maybe even sales leadership, that's a lever. That's a motivating factor that we can use. But two, I always try to build a talent feeder system for the sales organization. So we are really looking for people that are promotable in terms of their talent and want to go to the next level. And, we're building that as we speak here at Workfront. Starts with that, absolutely. Two, and I won't get into it, but having a good fit for your culture is important. Companies have different types of cultures. So knowing, what the fit looks like and the type of person they are to make sure they do fit that is really important. But then we really start leaning into things like, are they an achiever? Are they goal oriented? Do they have passion? Do they have grit? I'm a huge fan of grit. And then finally, coachability. Obviously, we're hiring people that want to develop skill and want to be coached and to be becoming great salespeople. So those are our attributes. And when we go into hire and interview, those are the check boxes we're looking to find with people.
Yeah, I think you touch on something there. It's something I learned in 10 years of B2B sales in the office equipment space, where I was my own SDR. And one of the things we always talked about, in that grind of prospecting is that, you can teach skill, but you can't teach will. And so looking at, that passion level of a person, I think is a really good indicator to see, is this going to be right for them? What are some of the things you guys do, Justin, in the interviewing process to look for those behavioral traits, the grit, the passion, the coachability?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with the word behavioral. We do a behavioral interviewing type style. I think Google probably made it most famous. But, asking questions that are open-ended and are essentially forcing people to tell their story. So, when it comes to something like grit, talking to them about times that they've had to go above and beyond and things like that, right? So we ask questions and we kind of tee up the candidate, like, look, you're here to tell your story, have your resume, but tell your story. And we're just looking for experiences that align to those types of attributes. On the achievement side, like, what is your greatest achievement? Why is it your greatest achievement? Like, what can you take that you applied from that experience to being an SDR here at Workfront, right? So it's just kind of peeling back the onion and really trying to find out the type of person they are and if they actually, in fact, hold that attribute based on past experience.
I think you touched on really two great things there, Justin. One, as you're talking about, setting them up to tell their story. Obviously, if you're interviewing for sales, a storytelling ability is, I think, something that's crucial and is going to become even more important as the sales role continues to change. So as you're 100%. As you're getting out these, behavioral qualities, you're also getting a sense of their storytelling ability. And then, the other thing you mentioned there is not only asking them about their greatest achievements, but I love what you said there in asking them why, because now you're finding out some of those motivators. Not everybody's money motivated. Not everybody is success motivated. What intrinsically is driving them? And then you can kind of see, does that match for the culture here? Are those things going to be, part of the job that are going to key in on that intrinsic motivation of that particular individual, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that is essentially, basically how we set it up is we spend about 15 to 20 minutes on each attribute. That's how we set up our interviews. So, a few of the managers will get in a room and they'll just focus on achiever. Is this person an achiever? Because if they are, the likelihood of them achieving in this next role is going to be very high. It could be academic achievement, could be professional achievement, could be in sports, it could be through some of their philanthropy they've done, anything, right? Anything they've done in school, projects or anything. And then we do get into, well, what motivates you? How do you define success? So, that journey of meeting someone and taking them all the way down the funnel to find out, what type of achievement they've had, what they're proud of, and, what motivates them and how they define success. We walk out of that room with a really good feeling on if, they're going to fit here and have a likelihood of being successful just in terms of that attribute. So that's exactly, what we test for and what we interview for. And we do it through storytelling. And you're right. Like, great salespeople are great storytellers. Great salespeople have phenomenal communication skills. Great salespeople have this passion in their voice. And you get all that through the interview. And you don't necessarily have to ask any question around that, right? You can just sense it through the behavioral aspect of what you're doing. So that's why I'm a huge fan of behavioral interviewing. I think it works great, at least for hiring the people we're looking for here in my organization.
Absolutely. I just see so many benefits in that process, especially for, like you said, such a crucial role in your sales team.
All right, today's growth story revolves around search engine marketing. and we'll be shining the spotlight on Aegis Software, a company that makes software for manufacturing operations. Aegis was one of the first companies in their space to invest in search marketing, but as competition grew, their performance plateaued. To counter this, they hired Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. With unparalleled experience in inbound lead gen for B2B companies, Directive was able to increase Aegis's monthly online leads by 457%, while at the same time lowering their cost per lead by 147%. Now I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too, so head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
All right, Justin, I think you're touching on, a lot of great things in hiring for this role. But like you said prior to this interview, touching on some studies that we've seen lately, the churn rate at the SDR level can be incredibly high. So, you want to find great talent, but retaining great talent is equally as important. And I know one of the things that you've employed is focus groups to keep your SDRs engaged. Tell us a little bit more about, how that strategy can come into play.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. You're right. The churn rate in this type of role can be sky high. There's just natural elements of burnout, lack of motivation, monotony that you have to deal through. So, when I became a manager of SDRs, this was something that was always top of mind for me. And I essentially asked myself a simple question, like how can I keep my people here? And really what it comes down to is how can I keep them engaged and motivated in their role? I have, been a huge fan and proponent of the servant leadership style. And that really starts with serving your people and engaging them in what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build as an organization, as a company. And I felt the easiest way to do that was to kind of segment out what's really important to our business and start engaging my people in it. So I created something called a focus group. You can name them other things, but I essentially said, look, what are the 5 most important elements of what we do here? First is obviously culture. The second is talent. How are we recruiting talent? How are we retaining talent? Third is enablement. How are we developing the skill of our people? Fourth is our strategy, or like how are we going out and going to market and being successful? And then finally is, I get some of the tech geeks together, is our technology stack. Like, are we wiring our tech stack the right way to make you guys successful, efficient, productive, and everything else? So I created these 5 groups around those 5 different things. And I basically, this was like my first week. I said, look, what are you passionate about? And I want you guys to build this with me. I have some ideas. I've been doing this a while, but it all starts with you guys. And man, the response I got from it was phenomenal. I had almost everybody sign up for one. And we just started building out what we wanted the Workfront sales development organization to look like together. There were some things that were working great. So I had people noisy about that we shouldn't change those things, and other things that weren't working so great. And they let me know that. And then we started to decide on how we could, fix those things really, really quickly. So I got some really quick wins, and, we just fixed things and that people said were problems, and it came from them, not from me. And it just worked really, really well. We continue to have these groups to this day and here at Workfront, and it just keeps people really, really engaged. It also gives them a little bit of escape from their role. Hitting the phone all day and prospecting all day can be a grind. So it gives them time to escape and really just keeps them close to what we're trying to do here. So it adds transparency into everything we're doing, allows them to be engaged, and it really allows them to build some skill on helping build a business and being involved in that. So they've gone really, really well here at Workfront.
Mm-hmm. I saw a quote just this week on LinkedIn in a thread talking about leadership and this idea that, when you're leading as a servant leader, when you're leading from behind, pushing your team, then the first thing that you see is your team. So if you're focused on them and helping them charge forward, then you're doing things right. And I love the way that this fits into that mindset completely, Justin. So you touched on a little bit there, skill development. Tell us a little bit more there, because we're big believers on the Sweetfish team of, one of our core pillars is growth, but not just company growth, but personal development growth, because we feel that as members on your team personally grow, then that contributes to overall company growth. So tell us a little bit about how you approach, skill development, some of the things you're doing specifically for the SDR role.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So if you think back to some of the attributes I talked about, the last was coachability. So we are hiring learners and we are hiring people that are coachable and want to be coached to become great salespeople. So remember, that sales desire for hiring the right person is sky high. So I think any great organization, regardless of role, but especially when you're hiring less experienced people that want to embark and start a phenomenal career, it's all about developing their skill. And that's a critical element of any type of organization. And it's a driver to retain talent and to keep people here too. If they're learning and they feel their job's impactful, they're going to stay. They're going to stay. So we lean into it heavily every single week. We have an organizational skill development type training. They also get a ton of one-on-one coaching from their manager. They do small group, call reviews, or they do working sessions to where they're sharing best practices. And this is even organically built into the fact of we have a group of ADMs here, SDRs here at Workfront that do peer-to-peer trainings every other Friday, where they're just sharing tips and hacks and how they can be more productive, more efficient, more successful. So skill development and enablement here at Workfront is a huge part of our culture. It's organic, it's living and it's breathing. And, I think if you're hiring younger people, again, regardless of their role, they really want to develop skill and they want their work to be impactful. Those two things are likely more important than the money they're making. It really is. It's part of that kind of millennial type culture. So we take it very serious. We invest in it heavily. And, it's just a big part of what we do every single week here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you guys are doing in creating a system for coaching, but also that peer-to-peer development, that percolation of ideas and sharing of things, especially in a sales role where like we said, it comes back to storytelling, and you can have this collective knowledge that continues to grow. The last thing I know you wanted to touch on, Justin, in keeping SDRs engaged is a tiered promotion strategy. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have employed there and your thoughts around this idea.
Yeah. So as I look back to that question of how do I keep talent here in any role I've had, this is probably one of the most critical things that I've figured out worked. And again, I really haven't personally created any of this. I've just seen these things work in jobs I've been in or companies I've been in and just implemented them. But having a tiered system, especially for a sales type position, is a phenomenal way to put people in control of their career. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Essentially, here at Workfront, we have 5 different tiers. Someone may come in at tier 1 or tier 2, depending on their level of experience. And each and every quarter, through performance and skill assessment or skill certification, they can earn a pay bump on both their base and their variable. And essentially, they'll knock into the next tier. They can do that every single quarter here. So I have 5 of those tiers. Once they reach tier 5, which if you think back, if they start in tier 2, how long will it take them to get to tier 5? In literally a year, if they perform well and continue to grow the right skill, and obviously it gets more advanced as you go up, they are then eligible to get promoted to sales. So those my peers over there can come grab them from my group. So there's no ambiguity around what they need to do to get promoted or what type of skill they have to develop to get to the point of being ready. It's all right out there from day one. So it's essentially a career track, and along the way, it helps them earn a little bit additional money and grow the right skills. So this keeps people here. I don't know who else is doing it around the valley here in Utah, but they from day one have their eyes set on that next role, and there's a track for them to follow. That's pretty clear. So it's been a really good vehicle in me retaining people here and getting people promoted to sales. In fact, we have a handful that effective October 1st are going to be moving over to the sales organization, and we're super excited for it. So it's been a great way to not only, keep SDR talent, but help me, create that feeder system to send people over to the sales organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, not just giving people a goal, but you give them, these are the milestones you need to hit. This is the track you run on, and this is how you get there, and empowering them and making that goal, seem that much more tangible. Like you said, from the very get-go, I think, that sets you up on the right track with new people coming onto the team.
Yeah. And the key there is they feel in full control over it. So they know exactly what they need to do and they are in control, right? So, that's a huge motivating factor for people to feel like their success is in their control, and their ability to grow their careers in their control, and their ability to get to the next position is pretty much in their control. So it's worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us in sales stumble into it and have an interesting path into sales. But one of the common threads is, I have more control over my career path or my earnings potential or these different things. And so making sure that you don't take away that motivator that, maybe was key to getting them in sales. I think that's phenomenal advice for sales development and sales leaders everywhere, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, this has been a phenomenal conversation, man. I love what you guys are doing. If anybody listening to this would like to reach out to you, possibly to apply for an SDR role or just chat sales, anything along those lines, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, the best way is probably on LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time, trying to learn things just like this and stay at the forefront of sales development. And I'm pretty good about checking my messages on there. So if you have questions or need advice or just want to throw something my way, you can just send me a message on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I love building a big network there, and obviously happy to continue this conversation with anyone who needs it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Justin. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. All those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency at no cost. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.